colors, it was ordered, the metal frames are going to be a dark silver. The straps and the frame itself, that would all be silver, kind of similar to the current weight room in the high school. And then dark green for the vinyl pieces of the weight room benches and so forth. So it will be Pennridge colors. And then the racks will have a dark green Pennridge P on them. That's going to be stamped on that. So it's coming along, and as soon as the floor is in, then they can start putting the equipment in. So hopefully all the equipment's in before the floor is going. So timing-wise, this thing should start moving around. Any other comments or questions about that piece?
So is the floor being installed, like when they install the floor, that's part of the quote, correct?
Correct.
So then once they put the floor in, and then who's going to move the equipment in? Who sets that up?
I think it's the company that, I believe it's the company because of, my understanding is, but I would have to double check this, I believe because of warranty issues that the company has to install that stuff to make sure it's in there properly. There might be some pieces that we could put in there, but I mean like a rack or like a free weight, but I think anything that needs to be assembled, they're responsible for that. Anything else with it? Big room? Okay. Brings us to the other agenda item on there is the presentation from the Market Street Sports Group. And I just wanted to start by saying what I talked about in the past was ways to generate for the district and add to our stadium project out there and some creative ways to bring some revenue. So we had talked about, is there any organizations out there now, any companies out there now that specialize in this or do such a thing as far as obtaining corporate sponsorships, et cetera. And so a group that I was aware of that's been around for 10 years now is Jeff's group. And Jeff is based out of Lancaster. He works with several school districts. Jeff doesn't know this, but he'll hear it now. I called lots of the school districts to see what they say about the Market Street Sports Group, and they all gave positive reviews. And so we decided to have him come in and share what their company has to offer school districts. And then there'll be time at the end if you have any questions. This PowerPoint is linked on item number 1 on your screen there, but if anybody wants a hard copy, I have that as well in case you wanted to write on it. Does anybody want a hard copy? Sue, would you like a hard copy?
Yeah, but I don't know that I brought a pen. I didn't know you were bringing hard copies. Thank you, sir.
No problem. So with that, I'm on?
You're
on. Good evening. Thanks for having me out. As you know, I'm Jeff Bertoni. I'm one of the owners of Market Street Sports Group. And what we've done is kind of put together a PowerPoint presentation for you. Like to keep it real informal, though, because realistically, this is a fact-finding thing for you guys. And what I'd like to do is just present kind of what we do and give you some options. If you choose to go in a different direction, I'm okay with that, really. And I'll kind of explain why our philosophy is like that and what we do and everything. But as you heard, we got started about, up arrow or down arrow? There it is. We got started about 10 years ago. We actually got our start prior to that, though, because 2 of us were former teachers. I taught in Montgomery County, Maryland for 15 years. My business partner, Jason, taught in Manheim Township for 8 years. So we kind of had an educational background. We both were drawn towards minor league sports and got involved with, I got involved with minor league baseball in Maryland with the Frederick Keys, which then led us to the Lancaster Barnstormers, Atlantic League Baseball. We helped bring the team to market, did all the marketing, advertising, sponsorship, everything you can think of, we were involved with that. And that kind of created an opportunity for us because the PIAA came calling and said, hey, you know, we don't really have a sponsorship program. We really haven't done it before. We have one sponsorship with the Marines, and we get very little money from that. But we'd like to beef up what we're doing and do what other states have done. Would you guys like to do that for us? So we started a company, really didn't know what it was going to be, how it would blossom or anything, and kind of just took a chance. And so the PIAA was a great proving ground for us because it got us involved in high school sports. It taught us the ins and outs of what we should and shouldn't do, and really kept our focus on the student athletes, and that really remains the focus of all the championships that we go to. In fact, we're getting ready to pack up and head up to Shippensburg for track and field tomorrow night and get that all set up. So for the PIAA, we do everything. We basically sell the sponsorships, put the proposals together, we collect the revenue, we then do all the fulfillment for it. They really just have to sit back and collect a check. And so over the past 10 years, we've grown the program from about $85,000 the first year to about $750,000 to $1 million, depending on the years that we're going through. So that's kind of, and we make up now about 1/7 of their overall budget in sponsorship, so we're pretty proud of that fact. Interestingly enough, once we got started with the PIAA, a local school district, the Hempfield School District, called on us and said, hey, we just bought a brand new video board, and we don't want to go to our taxpayers to pay for it. Kind of backwards. We bought it, but we don't want to pay for it with tax money. So would you guys think of something to help us with this? It is backwards, I know. That superintendent then retired, and a new superintendent came in, so we then kind of inherited this project. But we went with the school district and created the whole process that we use now. And from that, we worked with their solicitor to create board policy that allowed for sponsorship and for advertising on school property, which we now make available to the other schools. It's kind of a boilerplate. We also created the sponsorship agreement between ourselves and the district itself, which allows us exclusivity in becoming the marketing and advertising sponsorship sales force for the districts that we represent. And we also created a 3-party agreement, which is an agreement between ourselves, the school district, and the sponsor. And in having that 3-party agreement, it allows the district to kind of keep the sponsors at arm's length. So there is a partnership there, but there can never be any doubt that this is a corporate sponsorship. There's nothing extra because of it, so you're not going to get bids because of it. And we've actually, had instances where that's happened, where a produce company has been the supplier for the school district, and then the school district goes in a different direction, and then, hey, that's the way it is. That's business. You have a sponsorship. Your sponsorship continues. It has nothing to do with the decision that the school district makes. So those are the things that we created and kind of was our testing ground. And so Hempfield, now we're at a point where we have about 15 different sponsors at the district. They're making about $115,000 a year is what we end up bringing in. And I did include within the presentation what we do for the Dallastown School District. I was over there hanging signs today, so we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But we now are at a point where we handle the PIAA, about 10 given school districts at any given time. The City Islanders professional soccer team, we're involved with them. We just signed on the Lebanon Expo Center, and we have consulting packages out with 2 other school districts, one in New York and one in Detroit. So for a 4-person crew, we got a lot going on. So that's why when we come out to these things, we kind of let everybody know that we're not the group that's going out and actively soliciting school districts. We don't go to superintendent conferences. We don't go out and really make it known that we're out there, because we want districts to come to us who have an interest in this and can kind of come on board with us and realize that it's something that we can all do together. If you try and force it into a district, it'll never ever work. So we've learned that over the years too. So our business model, I kind of went through that with you, talked about everything that we do. It starts with us agreeing, hey, this is something that we both want to do. Once we get that in place, we'll come out, we'll do an inventory study of the district. We'll figure out where we would want to hang signage. We would figure out all the different things that would be available within the sponsorship packages that we would offer. Please understand, the packages that we put together are much, much more than hanging signs. And I don't want to speak disparagingly about another school district, but there's a school district not too far away from here that has 55 signs that ring their stadium. And we went out and talked to them one time, and we said, who controls this? Well, some of them are done by our booster club, and some of them are done with our athletic department, and I was like, well, that one looks faded. Well, we don't even know if they're still around anymore. well, who control, why aren't you taking the sign down then? And who's collecting the money? And they really didn't have a handle on that at all. So we've learned that that's certainly not the way that we want to do it. So our typical packages have about 15 different elements that are a part of them. Everything from exclusivity to PA reads to program ads, anything that the district that will allow us to do, we put in as part of this. And we also offer exclusivity. That allows us to ask for a higher dollar amount. Our average package starts at about $5,000. And then we go up from there, depending on the venue and the number of eyes that are going to see the different advertising that we're doing. So that's kind of the model that we've been able to do through the course of time. When we come out, like I said, we do the inventory study. Once we get that done, we submit that to the board, usually to a committee first, and they decide, okay, we like everything on this proposal that you have here, or they decide, you know what, we're not going to name our guidance suite. We're not going to name our nurse's office. We're really not. Our auditorium, it's already named for somebody. So those things, they line item off, and that's fine. We then figure out what are the things that really are going to work and where can we go with that. Once we have that in place, we then start to look in the community and figure out who is going to be the right fit for what we're doing. We certainly ask for input from the board. We ask input from anybody who can give us anything, because nobody knows the community better than you do, and we're coming in as newbies. So whatever we can get is certainly a help. We go out and solicit. We do all the work. We make all the contacts. We put all the proposals together. We submit those proposals. Once we get a meeting, we'll go out and talk to somebody about what the potential is at the district. We then come back and put a proposal together. That proposal is reviewed by a committee, usually like you guys. It's only 4 or 5 people. We try and keep it kind of smaller, but a committee as a whole who would know the pulse of the board and what would be acceptable and not acceptable. Once we get the proposal back, we then present it to the potential sponsor, and hopefully they then agree to it. We then write up the agreement, and it goes before the board for final approval. And that's kind of the process that we go through once we get everything up and running. With that, and I'm jumping ahead quite a few slides here. With that, we then, once we get the agreement signed, we work on all the design as far as the signage is concerned. We hang them, we order them, we do everything. The district doesn't have to do anything unless the district wants to help provide manpower. And, sometimes we do light pole banners, and if the district has a bucket truck, you can go ahead and do that. It saves us some money. That's great. We certainly would want that. Ultimately, though, it ends up, and I think, if I jump ahead here, yeah, we do adhere to the PIAA policy as far as the things that we don't want to go after, and being former teachers, we kind of know the good and the bad and the ugly, so we tend to stay away from all that kind of stuff. We also ask a committee that's created to let us know of anybody who they particularly don't want us to go after. If there are people within the community, businesses within the community that don't have a particularly good reputation, we may not know that. The committee might know that and might say, hey, they've done work for us before, and they're not the most reputable. We don't want to have them on campus. That's fine. As part of the board policy, you're able to limit who is in and who is out, and that's important that you have that ability to do that, and that way you can't have everybody coming in and saying, we have a right to advertise on campus, you have to let us on. You don't. I mean, you can decide who comes on and who's off, and it's ultimately the board's decision with everything. We make that really, really clear. The board has, I have right now a sponsorship at Hempfield that I'm trying to put together, and the company would like the money to go to the theater arts department, and the board has never earmarked any money. It always goes into the general fund. So now the board is hesitant on that, and I'm going crazy because it's $15,000 for each year for 5 years. I don't want it to go away, but if the board ultimately decides, hey, we're not going to earmark this money, then it goes away, and there's nothing I can do about it. So that's part of it, and we understand that's part of doing business. So all the things that I talked about as far as advertising, you can see we certainly go for appropriate things, and we stay away from prescription drugs, lottery, tobacco, all those kinds of things. So the naming rights is the key to this, and it allows us to get a higher dollar amount. We've named everything from tennis courts to press boxes to ticket booths, but because they hopefully then take on the name of the sponsor, it helps in getting that higher dollar amount. So that's a piece of this that is pretty important to what we do. The signs you see here, Appleford Court and Wellspan, we've actually gotten better at making our signs. We've had some districts who really want the branding to be split between the two. So a lot of our newer signage, if you go on our website and look, a lot of our newer signage is kind of split. So there's 40% that's a district logo, and the rest of it is the corporate sponsor's logo. And that's something that we've kind of done at the request of our districts, and that happens as we go along. As far as corporate sponsorship, the things that I talked about, the average proposal are here. Not all of them are done by every district that we have. Some districts don't want to do mailbox stuffers. They're getting away from that, and they'd rather do it through email. Some districts have mailers that go home, but most of our districts have done away with mailers that go home because they don't want to have the cost attributed to it. So if that happens and they go to a district-wide email blast or something like that, we've had sponsors who become the masthead sponsor of that, and that works really well. But overall, we have to kind of look at what is available to us from the district. Sometimes we do have to talk to booster clubs and rein them in, and I don't know how you guys deal with your booster clubs, but a lot of districts, the booster clubs kind of do their own thing, and when a touchdown's scored, they give T-shirts to the cheerleaders, and the cheerleaders throw them out. Well, we then come in and say, look, if a sponsor wants that, then that money ultimately should go to the district, not to the booster club. So sometimes there's a struggle there, but ultimately, as part of this, we take out program ads in all of the booster club programs. So when we get to a school like Hempfield and there are 14 different programs, or 14 different sponsors, we're going to each one of those booster clubs prior to their season starting, and we're giving them a check for quite a bit of money for those 14 sponsors. So ultimately, they're pretty happy about that, and they don't mind if they lose a piece of inventory here or there. So that's a piece that, sometimes we have problems with. And I don't know your district well enough to know if that would be a problem or not. So I'll just throw that out to you as a pitfall. A guesstimate, that's the one thing that everybody always asks of us. They ask us, hey, can you give me some idea of what we could raise? And realistically, we can't. Until you get started and start selling, there's no way to know. We've gone into districts where we've thought, this is going to be great. This district should generate tons of money. We went up, and I'll give you the example of the West Shore School District out towards Harrisburg. Borders Harrisburg on one side, borders York on the other side. It had 2 high schools. We thought, this is going to be great, it really will work. And we could not get anybody to bite on it. We tried for 3 years straight, and I think we've sold maybe 1 or 2 sponsorships. And we realized afterwards that they had already gotten a sponsorship with a local bank and allowed them to put signs on all of their scoreboards. And so that then meant no other bank was going to come in and do anything. And there were all these little things that we didn't know going in. We kind of found out along the way, and it turned out that it just wasn't a right fit. Typically, when we work with the district, we ask for 3 years, and that gives us time to build momentum. And really, it's not a process that happens overnight. I always use the analogy of a water faucet. People think that with corporate sponsorship, it should be easy. You just turn the faucet and hey, we're selling corporate sponsorships, and money runs out of the faucet. It doesn't work that way. You've really got to build relationships. And so, we go out and we get into the community and we try and find the local credit union who wants to give back to the community, or the local hospital or doctor or chiropractor or whoever it is. And that's where we have some success. So I wish I could give you, an average or what I think would happen, but I think the best thing to do is look at what we've been able to do in some other districts. So we've given you, that my CFO give you the idea of what we've been able to do with the Dallastown School District. So if you look at that, you can see that we've had 16 sponsorship agreements there that have generated $331,000, about that. And we've got a little bit of everything there. You can see that there's an automotive dealer, there's orthodontics, there's a math and reading service, there's a credit union. It's kind of all over the map as far as who's involved, and they're all involved at different levels. So I think it even gave you kind of a breakdown of what you can see there. And the breakdown really shows you how things are spent with what we do. What we try and do is keep the cost down as much as possible. So the first piece of the cost is obviously the signage. That comes off the top, and then the program ads come off the top also. Once we do that, the revenue that is left, we then split, and the district takes 70% and we take 30%. And with that, we do all of the billing, we do all of the collection of money. Once we've collected a piece of a sponsorship, after 15 days, our CFO does a reclamation of it, sends it to the business director, whoever's accepting the money for the district, so the district immediately knows exactly how much has come in. So you can kind of see there how it's gone over the years with the Dallastown School District. Now, as we were talking earlier, Troy and I, he was confused by the fact that we're not actively seeking anybody right now. And the reason we put that in is for what I told you guys. We're not going out in any communities and looking for folks. If somebody wants us to come out and speak like you guys have, I'm happy to come out, let you know what's going on. And then from there, if we want to pursue it further, that's great. We're certainly willing to do that. But we also do consulting on the other side where, if you don't like the 70-30 split, we'll come out and we'll do the inventory study and give you samples of what we do, and we just accept the $5,000, $2,500 before we do the work, $2,500 after we do the work, and then it becomes yours to sell, and you guys can take it from there and have somebody on your staff do it. So those are kind of the two options that we're able to offer. But I wanted to kind of give you an idea of overall what's there. And really the most important thing, and we ran into this, I'll say with the Council Rock School District, we started with them. They had a business director who was very excited about corporate sponsorship. And he pushed for it and got it through the school board, but he didn't have the support of the superintendent. And he didn't have the support of either of the principals at either one of the schools. And so when we went in and started presenting potential sponsorships to them, the principals were fighting us on everything. And then finally the superintendent said, well, I never wanted to do this. This was forced upon me, by the school board and by the business director. And we were like, well, we didn't know that, And so the whole thing kind of fell apart because we didn't have the buy-in of everybody who's involved. And that really, really needs to be a key to this. And many of our districts, the superintendent sits on the committee and will make decisions as far as the sponsorship is concerned. And a lot of our districts, business directors are involved, athletic directors are involved. There has to be kind of a consensus with everybody that this is a direction that we want to go. So I just throw that in there as something that I want you guys to understand and know that it's important to us that if we do get involved, we have to have the buy-in of everybody. I lost 2, but I have 4 left. So
There's a concert there.
I know.
Yeah, there's a concept.
So I'll open it up to questions.
You do other than just sports connections?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Right now, the one at Hempfield I'm working on is a performing arts center. I'm trying to get that. So if a sponsor has a particular tie to something, that's great. We've had sponsors who have played baseball and they want to do something on the baseball field. That's great. We'll name it for your company, but ultimately the money goes back to the general fund, not to the baseball program. So that's kind of a point that we have to make.
How about things like website advertising, email, as you mentioned?
Typically, we put on every one of our districts a corporate sponsors button that people can go to and
On the website.
on the website, yeah. We have done a few school districts, we have real estate agents who've been really interested in being the sponsor of the entire website. And then they have a button on the website that has featured homes within the district that are for sale. And so that's been popular in a couple districts, which made sense.
And you mentioned a 3-year commitment. Now, everything you do is on commission?
Yeah,
So you're just saying, don't expect overnight results the first year?
Right.
That it's going to take 3 years to
Right.
really show?
and realistically, I mean, if you're the committee and we're submitting the proposals to you, you're gonna see how many proposals are coming in, so you'll know that we're, if you see 10 proposals in the first year, they're doing something, they're out there in the community, and, that's kind of the way we work it.
Hey, Jeff, most districts that you've worked with, what do you find kind of just roughly percentage-wise? More going with the 70-30 or more going with the other option of trying to get them started out?
We just started the consulting thing, and we did that mainly because we were getting so many calls from districts that were just too far away from where we are. You guys, I think, would be on the outskirts. I mean, we have Pottsgrove and Pottstown that we deal with, and it's a drive to get there. So you guys are just a little bit beyond that. But I think what you're going to find when we're involved with the 70-30 split, we're very involved. I mean, like I said, today I was out at Dallastown because one of our signs on the baseball field was looking pretty worn. So we got a new one ordered, and somebody had to go out and hang it, and I didn't want to pay for somebody to do it, so I was out at Dallastown putting fence ties on and hanging a sign. And then we had another one that had blown down when we had the heavy winds a couple weeks ago. So we had to put it back up on the tennis court, so I did that too. So, we're very engaged with the districts that we are a part of. There have been times when I go out to the districts at Pottsgrove, they always have me out every year for the final game of the season to do a kick. They have a chiropractor who's involved, and he always challenges somebody to try and make a 15-yard field goal. And if they make it, he, on top of his sponsorship, he gives them $250, and he donates $250 to the athletic department. So they always want me to come out and get on the microphone and run the promotion for them. Hey, you're the PIAA guy, come on out and do that. Great, okay, I'll be out, So my fall, I'm running around from school district to school district doing that, but, it's also good for us because we can make sure, okay, the PA announcements are being made and all that's being thrown, and so that, it's kind of self-serving, but we're a part of the districts that we are involved in. The consulting thing came out because a Yahoo News article just came out the other day, and they quoted me in it, misquoted me a little bit, with the Associated Press about a school district outside of Notre Dame in North Bend that was raising funds. And a lot of people read it, and they all started calling it, and I was like, hold it, I can't do something for the Detroit public school system. We can't come out there and service you the way we like to. But we do have this consulting service that we're able to do. So we actually did it for the Derry Township School District. They asked us to come up and consult for them. So we went up and basically did the study for them, gave them sample proposals, went over everything, and then we were going to let them go for it. What they found was, in doing their due diligence, that quite a few of their venues faced thoroughfares in Hershey, and the township would not allow any signage to be hung facing any major thoroughfares. So that took out their multi-purpose field, that took out their tennis courts, that took out, there were a lot of things that it took out. They also have an agreement with Hershey Entertainment, I think for 99 years or something like that, but they're allowed to play at Hershey Park Stadium all of their football games. So because they don't have a stadium, then that takes a piece of inventory away. You don't have a scoreboard to put anything on, you don't have any, anything to name. So when they started to look at the amount of things that they truly were losing out of it, they only had really their gymnasium, their cafeteria, and a few other things left to name. They kind of said, maybe this isn't really, you gave us plenty, but there just isn't enough there that we could do. So it didn't work out.
Sponsorships like a sign or a name.
Could you put your microphone on, please?
Sponsorships, for example, signs or naming rights are for a specified amount of years, correct? So
Yes.
you might take a sign for 3 years, at the end of 3 years, you can either renew or the sign comes down.
Right,
And
right.
naming rights the same way.
Well, that's, typically what we found is bigger venues, gymnasiums and stadiums, we tend to get higher dollar amounts for, and we try and push anybody with that to a 5-year deal at least, because there's so much more signage that is a part of something like that. A good example at Governor Mifflin, their auxiliary field was named by a credit union, and we really wanted them to do a 5-year deal because they have 5 windscreens that kind of surround the entire venue, and it just makes sense to do that. For like a scoreboard sign or something like that, we would be more willing to work with somebody. We've had, when the economy went sour, a lot of companies came to us and started saying, well, can I do a 1-year deal and then renew after that year and keep going from there? And we weren't real excited about that, but we took to most of our school boards, and most of them said, yeah, if they're going to have right of first renewal and they just keep renewing, we'll do it.
The problem is with that, the production costs of, say, a sign,
Right.
for only 1 year, you might break even the first year.
Yeah, yeah. We'll make a little bit. We make sure we make something, but it's better to get it for 3 years.
Right.
Absolutely.
Part of our initial fundraising here was signs at Helmet Field.
Mhm.
3 years commitment, and the production costs of the sign was
Right.
covered more than by the first year.
Right.
So we feel comfortable that that's a good profit
Mhm.
there.
Jeff, what's some of the craziest things that people have advertised on that we wouldn't even imagine?
Band trailers, that's been successful. We've done baseball fields, softball fields, we've done scoreboards, we've done student sections. They've become very popular. Yeah, we had sheets at one school, did the student section, and we had actually gotten a new product with our sign company that adheres right to cinder block, and it looks like it's painted on. It's a vinyl applique with heat, and it really, really looked good. And so we put that up in the student section, and we had a wind banner that we put up in the football stadium. So we had both student sections that are sponsored by Sheets. Funny story about that product though, we did dugouts for a softball field at one school. And when we had the company come out and put the applique on the dugout later that afternoon, the grounds guy called us from the school district and was yelling at us because we had painted his dugouts, and how am I ever going to get that paint off? And we're like, did you look at it? He's like, I can't believe they did that so quickly. You know, we were like, no, it's an applique, it's not paint. And so he was like, oh, so it just peels right off? Yeah, it peels right off. The heat, it just comes right off. So he was like, oh, okay, that's great, not a problem at all. So, yeah, we've seen some pretty interesting things.
Do you have any situations where fields that the districts use are actually owned by municipalities?
No, I can't recall any of our school districts where that's been the case. No.
So you'd have to probably have some kind of agreement with the municipality if
Yeah.
you wanted to do some advertising.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I know our baseball and softball fields at the high school level are owned and maintained by municipalities.
Mhm. Well, at Governor Mifflin, though, their baseball field is owned by the American Legion. And so the American Legion sells its own advertising on that, and that just wasn't part of our inventory. We knew that going in, and that's a piece of inventory that we just wouldn't have.
You mentioned that at Hempfield, the sponsorships bring in about $115,000 a year.
Mhm.
So just wondering, how long did it take to get to that point?
We've been with them now for about 9 years. And it took us, I'd say, the first three or 4 years to get to have about 14 sponsors. We also are at a point where you have to be careful, because and we've said this all along, you don't want to have too many sponsors. You know, it's a dual-edged sword. You want the money, and you really want the sponsorships, but at the same time, when you get more than about 14 or 15, you then have the problem of, if we're making PA announcements, you know, we now have to make 15 PA announcements at an event. So, and we dictate within our agreements that, you know, if they have an announcer and the announcer's making announcements, they should be making PA announcements. So if you've ever been to a volleyball game, they're quick. So a volleyball match is a very quick thing. So to get 16 PA announcements in, you're struggling to get that in. So that's something that we have to be really careful of. And the other piece of it is, coming from minor league baseball, where if you go to a Fightin' Phil's game, the outfield wall is awash of sponsors, and there's sponsorship everywhere, and it's, that's the model, and it's great. But for a high school, we try and limit what we're doing. We try and make everything, co-branded whenever possible. We try and make sure that, we're not in the classroom necessarily. I mean, we're trying to make sure that we're in public venues that most people are going to see. And the reality is that if you look at just about every sponsor that we listed there for Dallastown, very few of them are going after the students. They're going after the parents, they're going after the grandparents. And so that's kind of the model that we've been pretty successful with and found that it works.
Can you explain the Dallastown sponsorship? Because I don't, you have the gross revenues and actual contract. Can you just explain that slide?
Sure.
Is there an overhead on that?
There is.
I can go back to it. There you go. Thank you.
So really what you're looking at there is the overall, with all of the sponsors we have, we always give, with each one of our agreements, the contract that comes in, we provide what we call an Exhibit B. And the Exhibit B has everything broken down as far as the money that's going to come in. And we make an estimate of what the signage cost will be, what the installation cost will be, if there is any, what the program ad cost will be. We always keep something in a maintenance escrow just in case the sign is damaged by a student or wind or whatever. We have that there. So we're able to kind of give the district what we expect, and then there we are with the actual so far. So in the time that we have, and our CFO Frank is still collecting for this year, but our estimate for the year is $331,000. So far to date, he's collected $227,000 of that. So out of that, our signage estimate was a little low, so we're a little higher with that. Installation, we estimated high, but we went low, so that's good. And program ads were a little lower, so we've actually, are making a little money there. So that's kind of how it breaks down and how we do everything. So realistically, when you look at it, the things that both the district and Market Street are on the hook for are the signage cost. We're basically paying 30% of the signage cost, and we're also paying 30% of the program ads because they're coming out prior to us splitting 70-30. That's kind of how it breaks down.
And so is the estimate of $331,000, that's just for 1 year, or that's from the beginning in 2012?
I believe that's from 2012 to now. That's what
Okay.
Frank did.
So it's 4 years
Right,
of
right.
revenue. And so, and some of that includes, some of it was a 3-year or a 5-year.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so that's why you're still collecting.
We're still collecting on the stuff that's going through the end of the year, yeah.
And then what are the program ads estimate? That's what you're paying? Is that what you were talking about when you put an ad in every booster club ad
Yes,
book?
yes. Yep. So some districts, they have one program that they do for all the fall sports. Other districts, like Dallastown, we have probably 14 or 15 different programs through the course of the year. So, we get the call from girls soccer, we get the call from field hockey, we get the call from every one of them. And so then we work with the booster clubs to make sure they have all of the ads. The sponsors like it because now, instead of getting 14 different calls, they get one call from us at the beginning of each season, and we say, we need an ad for these 5 programs. If you need help designing it, we'll help you design it. We then do that, and then we then disseminate it out to the different booster clubs along with their payment.
So that's the cost for it seems high, I mean, it seems it's the highest cost in there as far as,
Yeah, program heads are costly in a lot of districts.
so are they always a full page, or it just depends, that's all part of the
It
deal?
depends on what they're purchasing. If it's a smaller sponsorship, a $5,000 sponsorship, it's most likely going to be a half page.
Mhm.
If it's going to be something like a $20,000 sponsorship or a $30,000, it's going to be full page. I've had some people that have said, I want the back page of every program, so make that happen for me. So we then, a lot of times, go to the booster clubs and try and negotiate a better price for ourselves, because we're buying 14 heads from you through the course of the year, so can you help us out?
Mhm.
And most booster clubs are willing to do that. So,
And they're the cost over 4 years, the program has?
so far, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so it's around $10,000 a year.
yeah.
Oh, you also mentioned if we provide the manpower, let's say we put something up, so you take that out of the cost, I guess that.
Yeah,
out of the
out of the installation
cost.
piece of it, yeah.
Does that incur a charge and then that's credited to the district?
No,
Or
it
it's
would be
just taken off?
Just taken off prior to us making our split.
Okay.
There just wouldn't be any installation costs. Or if I come out and hang the sign myself, there isn't an installation cost.
Okay.
Like I did over in Dallastown, I don't charge for my time, we're partners.
And I'm just wondering, so we started a capital campaign, have you looked at that, or have you worked with any districts where they had a campaign going and then you had to work into that? I'm just wondering.
Yeah, Conestoga Valley School District is doing a capital campaign, and they have been doing a capital campaign to redo their stadium, which they've done now. And really what we try to do is, it's a different spend for a sponsor. A capital campaign is a philanthropic thing, it's a one-time donation, and you're going to get your paver, or you're going to name the flagpole, or you're going to name the inventory items that they had in the capital campaign were not on our inventory pieces, and so they were different. We've also worked with foundations in the past, and it's funny, the money I was talking about at Hempfield that could go to the Performing Arts Center. If we can't get them to agree to earmark the money or figure out a way to make it work, the other possibility is the company makes the donation to the foundation, and the foundation already has different pockets set up. So one is for the theater arts department, and they would then make the donation through the foundation. But there wouldn't be any advertising attached to that, so there wouldn't be any signage going up or anything like that. So the company, they want to give, but they also want acknowledgement for, hey, we're giving this amount, we should have something on campus. So we've worked with both.
Jeff, next steps.
Mhm.
Typically, let me just preface it with saying this. We have a board policy in place that already prohibits tobacco advertising, things like
Yep.
that. So we would have to maybe look at that and see if that needs any revision at all. So I think that puts us a step ahead of the game with at
Absolutely.
least having something in place there. But at this point then, what are your typical suggestions for districts, I guess, after they meet with you, and what are the typical next steps? I know we have to figure out what we want.
Yeah, I
but
mean, you
is
guys
that
need to
kind of
figure
what
out, yeah, that's the next step, and figuring out if and I have to, honestly, I have to drive around campus a little bit, take a look around, because you say there are signs already up on your track there. So, I got to figure out if we're the right fit or not. I mean, that's the tough part, or, working with the municipality on the different pieces. So, I mean, my exposure to your campus so far was pulling up the road and basically parking and running through the people who are going to the auditorium because I'm late. I'm like, oh no. So, now that we've had a chance to speak, I'd like to go around and look around a little bit. And also get a feel for the community as a whole, what's out there. We've had some districts that we've gone and spoken to, and realistically, there's just no business around to draw from. A great example is Octorara. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's out. I know you're familiar with it because you're from Warwick, but Octorara is out towards Gap, Pennsylvania, and it's built in a cornfield, literally in a cornfield. So this is very early on in our career, you know, they came to us and said, we need to raise some money. It was, oh, sure, you know, we'll take anybody. And I just couldn't get anybody to bite on it because they're surrounded by Amish farmers. And they don't want to advertise, they don't need to advertise. In that area, there was one car dealership, and that was it, you know, so they don't need to advertise. So these are all things that you kind of have to look at and see, is there enough within the community to support a program like that? So that's something that we have to look at too. But from your standpoint, you really need to decide as a group if it's something you want to move forward with, what direction you want to do. Do you want to task somebody within your district to do it and then just use our support? Or do you want us to take it on as a whole? And if that's the case, then we need to work up the documentation and figure that out. And once we have an agreement, that's when we meet with you guys and do the inventory study. Typically, we walk around, and again, at some districts, we walk around with the superintendent. Very proud of their district, they'll walk us through everything. Some districts, we walk around with the business director and the athletic director. It really, there's no rhyme or reason. Every district's different. So we go around, we take pictures, we do mock-ups, we figure out where everything that we think has potential, we put it on there. And that way, you guys then can decide what you don't want to do. We had one district that had a planetarium, of all things, and we put it on the list, and they were like, how are you ever going to get a sponsor for a planetarium? We probably won't, but we wanted it at least to be on the list because, you know, maybe that's something that we want to do. So we'll do that, and like I said, there's no cost to you for any of that. We do all that. We do all the proposals and everything. You know, if we're working with you and doing a 70-30 split, we do all of that before we try and sell anything. But ultimately, we eat what we kill. So we have to get on the ground and we have to start making money because we don't make anything if you don't make anything. So that's kind of the model that we have. It keeps us hungry, I guess.
Everybody good?
Well, I mean, I feel like we need to have another discussion with more people since there aren't enough people here. So I don't know if it's better if we could put it onto a finance committee agenda. I mean, there's not a rush or anything, but I think it's going to be hard for people to discuss without hearing the presentation. So I think suggestions.
And I really would,
So we can watch your video.
hey, I'm all for the
If you give us a
viewership.
link
there you
for
go.
it.
Tell your friends.
I really would recommend that everybody go to our website. You know, we're very almost too forthcoming as far as what we put on there. It kind of shows you all of our different sponsors and a lot of stuff of what we've done in different districts. And we're happy to share that. You know, we made mistakes in sharing too much with some districts in the past, but we're pretty much an open book, and we feel like for anything like this to work, it has to be a true partnership. And there has to be that trust that's there between all parties involved. So, you know, we're able to call anybody on the phone and say, hey, you know, we're having problems with this one sign, what do you suggest? Or we're having problems with this sponsor, what do you suggest? You know, we've had that before too. We've had a mascotted sponsor come out and at a football game kind of get beat up a little bit. Not beat up, but, you know, pushed around a little bit. And the sponsor then came back to us and said, you know, our mascot was roughed up by a bunch of middle school kids. And the school, we called the school district and said, hey, you know, what can we do about this? And they like put a hard line stop on it and told the kids what they should be doing. This is disrespectful. And, you know, that they actually tweeted the picture of the mascot, and if you see this mascot, be nice to it. The next time the mascot came out, it was great. They got all this goodwill as a result of it. So, you know, those kinds of things happen, and we have to be able to make those communications between everybody involved. So that's kind of important to us. Okay.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
We really appreciate your time.
No problem. Happy to be out. How
Can I
about I
ask
give
a
a couple of questions before he leaves?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Well, I have to
Yeah,
get
so let me
permission
just
from
see,
them.
so I guess we'll just see if we can maybe add it to facilities, or maybe facilities or finance, since Mr. Schmidt is the chair of facilities and it kind of relates. I don't know, do you think, does it matter which committee it would go into?
Sure.
I think so. Facilities might be fine. Yeah, fine. So
Okay. All right, so I can,
they're on the same night, sorry.
right, they're the same night, yeah, I just, to get more people to have a discussion about it. So, all right, so we can take public comment.
Do you want me to go up there or leave him up there?
Yeah, it's fine.
You're fine there, so no one else is here anyways.
Okay. My question was, you said you wanted to do a district-wide mailing. Can you define district-wide for me, please?
Well, it depends. I'm not saying we want to necessarily do it. If the district already does a mailing, at one of our districts, they do an annual report. And as part of their annual report, it goes out to every taxpayer within the district. And on the back of the annual report, they just put the logos of each one of the sponsors. It has a thank you to our corporate sponsors. It has each one of their logos and what they sponsor within the district. They also do, not an annual report, but they do a happenings, it's called, Hempfield Happenings, that gets mailed out to every taxpayer within the district. And within that, we're able to put in quarter-page ads for each one of the sponsors. But like I said, they're finding now that it's cost prohibitive to keep sending that out. So now they're starting to scale that back, and probably after this year, they will no longer mail that out. So they're going to go digital with it. And so we've had a lot of districts who have gotten away from doing the mailers, bless you, and have gone to either Facebook, Twitter, email blasts. They do a weekly blast that goes out, and we've had success with that. So
Where do they get those email addresses?
usually the folks of the district have to opt in to have their email address. And so each year it grows because at some districts, they started out and they might have a couple thousand emails, but people start to realize that that's the way everything's going to be communicated from the district. So if I want the district calendar, if I want to know, the lunch calendar and that kind of thing, I need to be a part of that. So it's grown as we've done it.
You mentioned that you may have a firm within or an entity, let's say, within the district that reputation-wise, the board is not in agreement to let them advertise. What if, I think the thing that came to my mind, there are perfectly legal businesses that a board member may have a political view about or a personal thing about where it's not really justified to deny that business. Let's say if it's a gun shop, that's a perfectly legal business, or a pawn shop. And, that's, maybe on the edge for some people, but it's a legal business.
The board defines the policy and we adhere to the policy, but ultimately the board has the final decision, not us. So if the board decides that they don't want to move forward with something, I'll give you an example. We have a group that collects clothing. They're called Community Aid in the Lancaster-Mechanicsburg area. And they put bins on each one of the school campuses. In the bins, people drop their clothing in, and they pay a sponsorship fee to be a part of the overall program, and they do something on campus that they sponsor. And then they actually give a percentage back of the clothing, the pounds of clothing that are collected. 4 cents per pound goes back to the foundation of the school district. And we had one school district that someone on the school board didn't want to do it. And they really didn't give us a reason. We weren't at the school board meeting, so they just said, we don't feel that it's the right fit for our district. And they left it at that. And so we then said, okay, we won't pursue this sponsorship with that sponsor. It can be as general as that.
Okay, and if you have a board member who, let's say, is in a particular business, and let's say he would like to advertise, but he doesn't want his competitors to advertise.
Mm-hmm.
So he might say, oh, well, that's not a reputable
But ultimately, the board has 9 members,
Okay.
and the board can vote on it. So if, you know, 5 of the members say, yeah, go ahead with this sponsorship, then we go ahead with it.
Okay,
I mean, that's the fairest way to do it.
thank you.
Oh, no problem.
Actually, I have another question. Do you, as part of the exclusivity, do you only have one person in a particular
Category.
field? Right, one.
Sponsorship category, yeah.
Right, so you only
And-
have one bank and one.
Right, right. And we always run into this when we first start out, because it's basically first come, first served. It'll get out that, you know, the district is now soliciting corporate sponsorships. And ultimately, you know, we try and reach out to as many as we possibly can, but the first one that comes in is usually the one that we're gonna take, because we've got money in our hand, and we take it to the school board and say, hey, look, you know, here's what we have. We have had school boards who have said, okay, we know you have this dental group, and that's great, but there's another dentist that we'd like you to take a look at. And, you know, go pitch it to them too. And then we're, you know, I don't have that much hair, we're pulling our hair out, because it's like, you know, you had one, and now you're telling us to go to this one because he's been a supporter of the district in the past. But the thing that we try and stress to the board is that, you know, it's a 3-year deal. In 3 years, if they don't renew, then that other company can come in and take the sponsorship. And we've had that happen too. You know, we've had companies, once the signs go up and they realize that heating oil company is now, you know, on campus, the other company calls us and says, well, how do I get on campus? And we said, well, they have a 3-year deal. In 3 years, if you'd like to increase the overall bid that you're doing, if you want to do a $10,000 sponsorship, then I have to go back to that company and say, I've now got a $10,000 bid. Do you want to either match it or let the sponsorship lapse? That's a fantastic problem to have.
Jeff, is it by campus, like heating oil? One at the high school, one at the middle school, or one for the whole district?
One for the district is what we try and do.